Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Take us to your leaders, Chaos Kids. I'm Naomi.
I'm Amber. And this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Yeah. Who are the leaders?
I don't know.
Who is steering this
It's like 12 guys in a smoky room with their cigars and their suits somewhere, ruling the whole world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've seen the X-Files.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on, sister? How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you for asking. Not a whole lot going on. I, just working. I took tomorrow off. Tomorrow's Friday. I think I can do this like once a month. Just go on. Do not disturb
day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
I need it.
Yeah, you do. Do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love it.
Okay. So I have a funny little, I guess it was kind of like a weird little, Okay. So those programs on all the things that are like the 90s, the deadliest decade, or the 90s, shit was wild. And it's just half-hour episodes of pop culture sometimes.
Sure.
Okay. So I pulled up one of those programs and I saw that there was an episode that was the 90s Seattle grunge scene. So I was like, I want to watch that just for funsies.
Yeah.
And it was these guys that started the indie label in Seattle called Sub Pop. And they were like the original signers of like Nirvana and Alice in Chains and all of them, right? And then like they did many of their first albums and then they got too big for their britches and went off to LA to sign with like RCA and stuff, right? So he had already had that happen to him, this co-founder. And so they had just released Nirvana's Bleach and they were afraid that Nirvana was going to ditch them too. So this guy was saying, I went over to Kurt's house to just kind of connect with him and make sure that like a personal relationship was established that was good and we were solid. And I brought him a gift and it was this really weird record called Philosophy of the World by the Shags. And that's how he got that.
I love a full circle moment. Was it Bruce? Was it Bruce Pavitt?
I think so.
Did he have like a beard and like, was he wearing like a train conductor's hat?
No. I saw that guy was talking to. There was two dudes, him and one other dude. Yeah.
Okay. So that other dude with the train conductor hat, Bruce Pavitt, he had, I don't know if he still does, but for a long time, he had a big piece of property on Orcas.
Oh, really?
And every summer he'd throw this big giant, like basically rave on his property.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He was a weird dude.
Well, sure.
Weird dude. So the summer that I was catering with my soon-to-be mother-in-law, I went to that party with some of the other employees of the restaurant, like after we finished working an event that night.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say anything because I'm not here to defame character or anything, but let's just say he was an interesting guy and that was a wild fucking party.
Really? Wow. Oh, man. Well, his efforts didn't pay off because Nirvana did Nevermind with like Columbia or whatever.
Right.
They bounced. But interesting.
Sure.
Interesting.
That is, I love when you have like that, like full circle moment. I had a couple of those while I was working on this story, not technically with this podcast, but I had a couple of moments while I was working on today's story that were like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's very strange. So
weird.
What are you drinking, sis?
Thank you for asking. I have an iced coffee today because I'm tired and it was a crazy day at work. And when like you're really getting into it and several hours go by and you're like, God, I only had one cup of coffee today because I just got so busy that I
never happened to me.
Okay,
I don't know how that happens to you.
Okay. Well, that happened to me today. So I'm
don't
trying to play
understand the
catch
story.
up. Okay.
Don't
Sorry.
understand the story.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Look, I have a routine in the morning. There are 3 cups of coffee. They must all 3 be ingested before anything else happens. Literally anything else. So I don't know.
Yeah.
This 1 cup and go. I don't know how anyone does that.
I start my workday too early. I mean, if I want to get up even earlier with enough time to get 3 cups of coffee in, I could do that. But
even earlier than 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Gross.
I know. I'm sorry. Oh, sister.
You have a crime.
I do.
Share.
I do have a crime to share. This one is a little bit different from our norms, but I really liked this gal on Evil Lives Here, so I'm going to tell her story.
Okay. Okay. Oh, Evil Lives Here. That's the one where it's like somebody who is almost like tangentially affected, related to the criminal, tells the story from like their perspective.
Correct.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like that guy that was like the serial rapist.
And he had the wife that was just trying
super
so
religious.
hard.
Yes.
Yes.
She married him while he was in prison.
I mean, there's other issues going on there.
But that was Evil Lives Here. I remember very specifically that was an Evil Lives Here episode.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, this is nothing like that. So,
okay.
I'm going to tell you about Elishaba Doersken.
Okay.
Elishaba. She is the oldest of 15.
15 kids?
Correct.
Oh, no. We are in a Duggar scenario here.
Sort of. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm. She has 9 brothers and 5 sisters.
Whew.
Her father is Robert Hale, but he decided that he wanted to be called Papa Pilgrim.
I'm sorry, what? Papa
Pilgrim. This guy fucking sucks.
I mean, right out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
We should never want to be associated with the Pilgrims in any fucking way. Like,
no. No. Mm-mm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, this guy will just give us another reason for that. So
great.
He told his children, all 15 of them, that they needed to call him Papa because that is what Jesus called his father.
That's not true.
Okay. Listen, none of anything that Papa is saying is true, and we're going to get to it. All 15 of his children had Hebrew names.
Okay.
Elishaba was originally named Elizabeth, and then it was changed to Elishaba.
The more original pronunciation of Elizabeth, probably.
Yeah,
okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And Robert called the family the Archabites. So she grew up in the Rocky Mountains of New Mexico in a small log cabin, and they were completely cut off from the rest of the world.
I'm sorry, a small log cabin with 15 children.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What year are we in? Like, what decade are we in at this point?
We are in the 80s, I believe.
Holy shit. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So they're completely cut off from the rest of the world. There's miles and miles between the family cabin and anything else. And the kids don't go to school. They don't know how to read or write. They don't know anything of the real world, only what their father teaches them.
They're not even supposed to learn to read and write so that they can like read and write scripture?
No.
Oh.
Nothing.
Oh.
And their father told them that anything beyond the mountain was destruction, and they believed him. And of course, he used the Bible to justify abusing his children.
Of course. As do millions of people on this planet.
Correct. Every morning when the kids got up, they had to sit at their father's feet while he sat in his special chair and preached to them for hours. They weren't allowed to eat until after their chores were done. And oftentimes they weren't done with being preached at until like noon. Then they would be sent out to do their chores. And after that, they could eat. So sometimes it was like bedtime again by the time they were able to eat.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he would regularly call the family around him to inform them of his newest revelation from God.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, what is it with old white dudes with too much facial hair that think they are...
that they're receiving the word of God directly?
Yes, correct. It's so gross.
It's some kind of pathology.
For sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yes. This guy looks like exactly what you'd think he would look like.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. So one of these revelations was that toys were evil and from the devil. And as it was, each kid only had one toy, and they like cherished their one toy, but they were forced to throw them away.
So at some point, the revelation was that the toys were from the devil and they had to now get rid of them. Prior to that, they had them. Okay.
They had one each.
God does not want joy in your life.
No,
There's
he
no
doesn't.
joy here. Okay.
Mm-mm. The next revelation was that any kind of imagination was ungodly because that meant that they were not living in the real world. And he said the children were no longer to have an imagination or play pretend.
So they couldn't even pretend to have toys.
No. Mm-mm.
This is so dark.
Fucked.
This is so dark.
Elishaba didn't really know what he meant by that, but a few days later, she was outside and pretending to be a chicken. So,
Oh my goodness.
What else are you going to do? I mean, it's pretty cute.
It's adorable.
It's fucking adorable. So he orders her to get a stick, and then he proceeds to beat her with it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Anytime he beat the children, they were supposed to tell him, "Thank you for correcting me."
Oh,
this is so fucking gross. I wasn't prepared for this.
Why are you? I cannot with this. This is just.
It just gets worse and worse. But honestly, if you're scrolling through episodes of Evil Lives Here and something says Papa Pilgrim, aren't you going to be like, I need to know what the fuck that means? And now, here we are. It just gets much, much worse.
Okay.
So hold on to your britches.
Okay.
So as she gets older, the abuse, of course, gets worse. As a young teenager, her father becomes sexually abusive to her, and he would force her to take baths with him, sometimes for hours.
That's so fucking holy of him.
Mm-hmm. And this, of course, eventually turned into him just full on raping her.
Yeah.
In 2002, he moves the family from New Mexico to Alaska, out in the Wrangell Mountains. I don't fucking know where that is.
Nowhere. It's nowhere is where he took them. Okay.
Yes. There's like the closest big town is Anchorage, which was a few 100 miles away.
Jesus.
So now they're even more isolated. And because Elishaba is becoming a young adult, her father doesn't let her out of his sight because he is afraid she will revolt.
Yeah.
Yeah, as she should.
Mm-hmm.
One day she works up the courage to confront him, and she tells him that he is a sinner for what he is doing to her. And this is a major trigger warning, but he reacts by beating her all night with his belt.
Oh my God.
This poor girl.
What a fucking piece of shit.
Yes. In the morning, when she woke up, she could barely move. Her eyes were so swollen that they were bulging out and she couldn't see. And her father made her put a ski mask on to cover it up.
Because he didn't want to see it?
He didn't want the other 14 children and his wife to see it. So
that's not weird. She's just rocking a ski mask at the house. Like, what?
I mean, it's Alaska. I mean, your face is cold.
I guess.
Mm-hmm. So she's afraid that because he's becoming more and more violent, it was only a matter of time before he killed one of them. It was at this time that a couple of her brothers, who were also much older and larger, confront their father and tell him that he better not ever touch her again.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Papa proceeded to punch one of the brothers in the face, giving him a broken nose. Then he told those two sons to get out of his house. And so the two brothers left and never came back.
They left their siblings there?
Well, wait. Let's wait.
Okay.
I know. So Elishaba desperately wanted to leave, but the guilt of leaving behind her younger siblings and her mom was too much for her, right?
Mm-hmm.
At 29 years old, Elishaba, along with her mom and other siblings, are called in for another revelation circle where her father tells her that God wants her to bear his children.
Oh, for God. Where did this piece of human garbage fucking come from?
I got New Mexico. I don't know. I don't fucking know. So this was the final straw for her. She was like, fuck no. She knew that she could not have her father's child and that she needed to escape.
Right?
So it's wintertime in Alaska and they're up on a mountain.
Ugh.
Mm-hmm. So one day, shortly after this having a child announcement, Papa leaves early in the morning on a snowmobile to go to the little town down below to get gasoline. And so Elishaba knows like this is her only chance, right? So she writes a note that said she was going to go into the wilderness and pray for a while. But one of her sisters saw her leaving and confronted her. And the sister says, I'm going with you. And then she tells her mom and the brothers that left already have an escape plan in place for you, and they will meet us in the village.
Wait, where's the mom in all this? She's still at the house?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Papa has gone down on the snowmobile. Elishaba thinks she needs to run away. Her sister intercepts her and says, you don't need to do that. We already have a plan for you to get out of here. Okay. So she grabs a bunch of food from the pantry, something to start a fire with, wood, sleeping bag, and warm clothes. And she also grabs several white sheets because there was only one trail off of the mountain. And she knew that her and her sisters and her mom would eventually run into their father going back up.
Right. So they were going to blend into the snow by being white sheets?
Yes.
Smart girl.
Fucking smart. So they drove on the snowmobile for a while and eventually stopped. They covered the snowmobiles and themselves with the sheets off the trail, so they blended into the snow. And they laid there for about 15 minutes before they heard their father's snowmobile coming up the mountain, and he drove right on by, didn't see them. Yep. And as soon as they couldn't hear his engine anymore, they got back on their snowmobiles and headed on down.
Bombed the fuck out of there.
That's so smart. So white sheets. Smart.
Yes.
Fuck. But at this time, they're closer to the house than to the town. And they knew as soon as their father got home and saw that they were gone, he would go back down the mountain to look for them. So they are fucking hauling ass.
Yeah.
And somehow she didn't really get into this, but somehow the plan got all fucked up. And her and her sister end up spending 5 days in the Alaskan wilderness before they finally meet up with their mom and brother. 5 days. They would get in their sleeping bags, put the sheet over them at night, and sleep.
Oh my God.
5 days. Yeah. So they finally make it to the village. They find the closest police station, and she sits down and tells them her entire life story.
Whoa.
I can't even imagine. Like, never
so 5 days after that, when she's done telling her life story. Oh my God.
She's never even really interacted with other people before. And this is what she has to do. Yeah.
Badass. She's a badass.
Yeah. Very shortly after that, she's telling the same story to the DA and then to a grand jury. So Papa Pilgrim becomes the most wanted man in Alaska. He is on the run and it's on national news. I don't know what he's doing, hiding under sheets in the snow too. Fuck.
I mean, he's out in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. If he can bear it, he can be out there for a long time.
I mean, yeah. In 2007, Papa Pilgrim, aka Robert Hale, was finally captured. He was charged with 30 felony counts of rape, coercion, and incest, and he was sentenced to 14 years in prison.
30 felonies gets you 14 years?
Yeah. But luckily, just 1 year after arriving in prison, he died due to liver failure.
Oh.
Bye-bye, Papa Pilgrim.
I cannot.
I know.
That name. I cannot.
Fuck that guy. I had 2 stories done for today, and one of them is very long. So when you said yours was beefy, I chose this one.
Well, juicy. I don't know about beefy.
Oh, okay. I like juicy, but that's the story, or that's the really brave.
So what happened to Elishaba and all of them after that?
She's so happy. She's married. She has children. She taught herself how to read and write. She went to college. Like, they're all good. I know. She's beautiful too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of, like, you got to see it. I meant to actually do this before. Don't look at this yet.
Oh, is this an audio file?
No, this is going to be a picture because I need you to, at some point, I'm going to ask you to look at this just so that you can fully experience this is the one I want to send. Okay.
I love a good interactive story.
Okay. Hold on. Mm-hmm. I'm going to send this to you. Don't look at this. Don't look at this.
I promise.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you about Rael.
Rael. Okay.
I've mentioned this before. You probably don't recall.
The cult. Oh, good. Okay.
So this is the story of Rael. So Claude Maurice Marcel Vorilhon was born September 30th, 1946 in France. His father is unknown. It's speculated his father was Jewish and had been hiding in France, but that's not confirmed. His mother was a devout atheist. He was actually raised by his grandma and his aunt. His mom was like 15 when she had him. In, I believe it's pronounced Ambert, which is an area in central France. He went to a Catholic boarding school, supposedly caused a scandal by taking communion without having been baptized.
Oh, the nerve.
So they pulled him out of that school and sent him to another boarding school. At 15, he bailed and ran off to Paris. And he spent the next 3 years busking on the streets and playing in cabarets and cafes.
Okay, fun.
And then Claude met the director of Europe 1, which is a national radio station in France.
Okay.
So this guy, this director, was looking for fresh young talent, and he signed Claude, who started to become a rising teen pop star. He took on the stage name Claude Seller. He released 6 singles, which included a minor hit, and started saving up money to buy himself a race car, which was his childhood dream.
Okay.
He wanted to race cars.
Sure.
But all that came to a sudden halt in 1970 when that radio director died by suicide.
Oh.
This is when Claude made a pivot into journalism. Well, sports journalism. This was how he would get himself into the world of car racing.
Okay.
It was around this time that he met and married Marie-Paul Christini, and the two moved out of Paris to central France, had 2 kids, and Claude started his own publishing house. He founded his own sports car magazine, Autopop. The first issue was released in May of 1971. And being that these new sports cars needed to be tested to be reviewed, Claude was well on his way to living his dream.
Yeah.
During this time, there'd been a number of reported UFO sightings in France.
Uh-oh.
And the ancient astronaut theory was gaining traction. You familiar
What the hell is... No.
You don't watch Ancient Aliens?
No.
Ancient astronaut theory is basically the theory that aliens have been visiting Earth for a very, very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's evidence that they were here during early, civilization, helped build the pyramids, things like that.
Okay, I have heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the ancient astronaut theory. So it would be in early 1974 that Claude would announce that in December of 1973, while on a mountain stroll, he had been contacted personally by the Elohim.
Mm-hmm.
He said that a UFO had descended gently from the sky, and from this craft, an extraterrestrial being had emerged and told him, in French, that this being had come down to Earth looking explicitly to speak with Claude, that he had a message for Claude, that Claude was to share with the people of the world.
Oh no, Claude.
His story went on to describe a total of 3 encounters with this being, this Eloah. Side note, Elohim is plural for Eloah, and the word in Hebrew means God, although it is used to denote other gods and other majestic beings.
Okay.
So this Eloah gives Claude this message about the Elohim, those who come from the sky, and how they were actually advanced human scientists from another planet that had 25,000 years of scientific advances when they created all life on Earth through DNA manipulation.
Okay. We are all a science experiment from
That's right.
the
Elohim.
Elohim. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Great.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And that there were about 40 prophets that were sent to Earth by the Elohim over human history, but their messages were distorted by humans, mostly because humans were too primitive to understand these advanced beings and their message.
But not Claude. Claude's one of the 40. Is Papa Pilgrim one too? Good God.
Later, I read that Claude was the final and 40th.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Jesus Christ.
I can't. Mm-hmm. So Claude starts doing radio and TV interviews to talk about these visitations and these messages all over France. Mm-hmm. And then he starts doing lectures in Paris, and he attracts a following, mostly sci-fi fans and amateur ufologists.
Ufologist?
Ufologists.
What is that?
UFO people.
That's a thing? It's called ufologist, or did you make that up?
No, that's a thing. No, I didn't make that up.
Oh my God, I learned so much from you. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So by December of 1974, an actual official group forms around Claude. They're called MADECH, which is an acronym, MADECH. And it stands for something, it's an acronym in French that translates to Movement for the Welcoming of the Elohim, Creators of Humanity.
Oh, God. Okay. Oh, God.
You see, part of the message is that Claude's mission was to spread the message of the Elohim to prepare for their return to Earth.
Right. And then what happens to the science experiment humans when they return to Earth?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Like, what do we do to prepare for this?
Oh, well, we have to become basically like enlightened. We have to have peace and harmony and unity and all these things that we don't have yet. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So MADECH was originally 170 members, and they all pooled their money towards a fund for the publication of the first book that Claude would write about all of this. They also launched a newsletter called Apocalypse, and they fundraised as well. The book was titled something in French I can't pronounce, which translates to English as The Book That Tells the Truth. Mm-hmm. The members of MADECH started to have their own ideas about the direction of the group and wanted to restrict Claude's power. So he called a meeting and got rid of all his opposition.
That sounds very David Miscavige.
Yeah, he replaced all the leadership with his most loyal supporters. And in 1975, he wrote another book, Extraterrestrials Took Me to Their Planet, where he described in detail another visit from the Elohim that resulted in a trip that lasted 2 days, where he was taken to a remote base close to their solar system, where he had a nice jacuzzi soak, a lovely organic breakfast, and a 3-hour lecture from Yahweh Elohim, his OG ET friend, about the need for Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, and geniocracy. Geniocracy is a system of government designed to select for intelligence and compassion that would require political candidates and the voters to meet a minimum bar of intelligence in order to participate in running or voting for any office.
Oh, well, we need that here. So I'm for that.
That's not democracy. So after this, they took him to the planet of the Eternals, where he met Buddha, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, and received teachings from them.
Oh my God.
He was told he would eventually live on this planet. He did some yoga, had a guided meditation, then had sex with a biological robot. Apparently, there was whole factories on the planet of the Eternals dedicated to making these biological robots.
Hold on. There's a lot to unpack there. A little yoga, a little brekkie, a little sex with a robot. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Fuck, man. Okay.
This is when Claude changed his name to Rael. Mm-hmm. By 1976, still facing opposition within MADECH, Rael just got rid of the group. And so began the Raellian Movement. Capital R, capital M. Mm-hmm. This was not a group of peers coming together to discuss and promote ideas about UFOs and the like. This was a strict hierarchical organization with Rael at the top as director or the guide of guides. And this movement included a broader religious structure, including ritual practices. The only thing that remained of MADECH was the newsletter.
But he got rid of everyone. He's just publishing the newsletter and doing a movement by himself?
No. He got rid of the organization. And then everyone who was hardcore came with him into the movement.
Okay.
That same year, the Raellians sent a mission to Quebec in Canada, the province where a ton of people speak French, to attract members there. By 1977, a branch of the movement was established there. Over the next 20 years, Rael's 2 books would be combined into one and published in English 3 times. Once in 1978 with the title Space Aliens Took Me to Their Planet. In 1986, under the title The Message Given to Me by Extraterrestrials, They Took Me to Their Planet. And in 1998, titled The Final Message.
Well, you can't accuse him of burying the lead, that's for sure. God. Okay.
He had other books through the 70s and 80s. One's called Let's Welcome Our Fathers from Space.
Sorry. Uh-huh.
One called Sensual Meditation.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a recovered memory. Keep going.
Okay. And Geniocracy. He wrote a whole book on Geniocracy.
I'm Googling sensual meditation. So I need to see I'm afraid that...
You own this book?
Well, let me explain.
You better fucking explain.
Okay, no, I don't own that one, but I did own one. It was recommended to me by somebody I dated who was also in a cult. So I purchased it and I'm like, oh my God, did I buy a fucking alien worship Raoul? What's his name?
Rael.
Rael book? Oh my God. No. Okay. Anyway.
So sensual meditation was really all about, these very intentional meditation to connect your mind to the mind of the Elohim.
Okay. No, I wasn't doing that.
But it is a sense, right, in the body type of meditation, but could and should lead to like orgasmic, elevation of the mind and body or something like that. I don't
Sure.
Anyway, so starting in 1980, the Raellians were going international. They sent missions to Japan, Africa, Australia. They bought a campground in southern France, which they named Eden.
Mm-hmm.
They used that for retreats and workshops, and I think he lived there and a bunch of the hardcores lived there. In 1985, his wife left him and the movement. He then started a relationship with Lisa Sunagawa, his second wife, who he met in Japan.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe his wife hung in there for that long.
I know.
Especially, he clearly cheated on her with a robot. Let's start there. I mean, God, I forgot that he had a wife. That's
so did he.
God. Okay, fuck.
In 92, a group of about 40 Raellians had an ideological split from Rael and formed their own group, the Apostles of the Last Days, believing that Rael had been the original spokesman of the Elohim, but had been taken over by Satan.
I mean, they're sort of on the right track.
That same year, the movement bought a bunch of land in Quebec and named the property the Garden of the Prophet. And this is where Rael would live for quite some time, making this the new home base for the movement. The place in France was almost abandoned, mostly because the French government had long labeled the Raellian movement a cult, and there was some controversy around supposed sexual abuse of children, which likely stemmed from the fact that Raellians believed that children should be taught about sex because sexual pleasure is a soothing balm for humans' violent impulses.
Okay.
That is not to say that some member or members did not abuse children. That remains unclear.
Mm-hmm.
But Raellians are quite sexually liberated and progressive, especially around gender as a construct, the fluidity of gender and of sexuality. They avoid labels like hetero, homo, or bisexual because these are too limiting for the human experience. Mm-hmm. They also rejected enforced monogamy and marriage, seeing them as a way to enslave women and suppress sexual expression. They are also discouraged from having kids, or at the very least, keeping their baby making to a minimum so as not to contribute to overpopulation.
Dang it. See, this is where it gets sticky. Everything you just said, I'm like, I'd be part of that group. I like that group. But it's like, oh, I don't know about the gentle landing of a UFO and then going to have breakfast and yoga. That's where you lost me.
My next sentence is, these guys are just such a fucking mixed bag, though.
Yes. There's always sprinklings of good advice and solid truth in every cult. That's how they get you.
There's a documentary on Netflix about Rael, and this is how I heard about him and all this shit. And there's definitely footage of members hanging out on that property in Quebec, like basically having giant group masturbation sessions. Lots of naked people and interviews with ex-members talking about feeling pressured to just be cool with all the nakedness. And, you know, so it's like... Yeah. And then there's the symbol.
Uh-oh.
Because, you know, we always have to bring it back to... The official original symbol of the movement is a 6-pointed star, like the Star of David.
Right.
Where the center is a swastika.
Where did the swastika come in? Why?
According to Rael, this is the symbol he saw on the original aircraft on his first visit from the alien, and was also on the alien's spacesuit. And it should be noted for the record that the swastika as a symbol for the Nazis, because it always comes back to the Nazis.
It always comes back to yes, always.
Was an appropriated symbol that had been around long before the Nazis and had been a symbol of peace and love and whatever in like other religions before the Nazis took it.
Right.
So in the early 90s, as the movement was looking for the location where they would build the extraterrestrial embassy.
Sure.
Giant fancy place where they would receive the Elohim upon their return. They were trying to do that in Israel.
With a swastika symbol on their embassy?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. I don't feel like that went over too well.
It really didn't. So
oh, God.
It was really getting in the way. So they...
Oh my God. Fuck.
So they modified it and they turned it into something a bit more swirly and less like swastika-y. And they used that symbol in the West for about 16 years and then went back to their original symbol after 2007 when it became clear that Israel was not interested in being the location of their alien embassy.
We can't imagine why. I mean...
And just for the record, because I can't believe how wild this shit was while I was researching this, and I didn't put this in the story, but there was an article from the Israeli Times in 2015, 9 years ago, where the Raellian Movement made an official statement that Israel was no longer protected by the Elohim and that they should disband and all of them should leave because of their treatment of the Palestinians.
Oh, shit.
So they were anti-Zionist before this year, like 9 years ago.
Yeah. This is a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. Oh my God.
And it keeps getting, the mixture keeps coming. So just...
Great.
So... This guy, Rael, he's a piece of work. At some point, he tells his people that he needs to form an internal, all-female group called the Order of Rael's Angels. This is like 1998, and they are trained to become consorts of the Elohim. They would be the only humans allowed to be in contact with the Elohim after they arrive on Earth. And then... serve as the Elohim's liaison with politicians and scientists and journalists. Only women could be these angels. But trans women are women and they could be angels. So,
God, I mean, God, I feel so conflicted. I've never felt so conflicted about a cult before.
I know. Also, this was like the late 90s. This was right around the time that Victoria's Secret started having angels. I just think it's really
Oh, God. So funny. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's so gross. There's 3 tiers of angels. They're all called the white ribbon, pink ribbon, and golden ribbon angels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The white ribbon angels wear white feathers on a necklace. They can have human lovers and are basically recruiters for the movement. Specifically more women, because men far outweighed women in the Raellian movement as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
The pink ribbon angels wear a pink feather on their necklace and are the chosen ones who will be the consorts for the Elohim. They live a sequestered life on the compound in Quebec and can only have sex with the Elohim.
With the aliens.
That's right.
Okay. That's right. Okay.
The gold ribbon angels wear a gold cord around their neck. They are handpicked by Rael for their physical beauty and will be the first humans to approach the Elohim when they arrive. And while both pink and gold ribbon angels have to abstain from human sex, they do need instruction in alien sex, Amber. And who do you think will instruct them on alien sex?
I think Rael is going to.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Rael is the one.
There is no other way.
No, but they can have sex with other angels.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And angels age out, of course. When they get too old, they lose their beauty. They get booted and relegated to training their replacements, basically.
Okay, see, now we're back to problematic. Okay. God, so superficial. Okay.
Sometime between 1990 and 1992, Rael split with Lisa, the one from
wife
Japan.
number 2. Okay.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And around that same time, Sophie de Niverville, whose mom and aunt were both in the cult, she also decided that she was convinced that Rael was onto something and received her Raelian baptism at age 15.
Oh, no.
And she married Rael when she turned 16.
Gross.
They divorced in 2001, but continued to live together. But the movement is based on science. It advocates for scientific advancement, modern medicine, encourages plastic surgery, and has a very strong interest in cloning.
Mm-hmm.
Since 1970, well, it's the way to eternal life.
Yeah.
Okay. Since 1979, new members of the Raellian movement have been expected to sign an act of apostasy and send a letter as such to any religious organization they had previously been involved with, basically denouncing all other religions.
Mm-hmm.
They also sign a contract that permits a mortician to cut out a piece of bone from their forehead where their third eye would be after they die, which is then sent to a place in Switzerland to be preserved until the Elohim return, at which time it can then be used to clone the dead member.
Where their third eye would be. Obs. Okay.
Obs. Brigitte Bosselier is a high-ranking member of the Raellians, and she was co-founder, director, and spokesperson for a company called Clonaid. This was funded by a group of investors who created Valiant Venture for this very purpose.
Mm-hmm.
This came a month after the announcement of the successful cloning of that famous sheep, Dolly, in 1997, when scientists at the Roslin Institute in Scotland created Dolly from an ordinary adult cell.
Uh-huh.
And Valiant Venture was all Rael and the Raellian movement. That's where that venture capital came from.
Shit.
Brigitte set to work to be the first company to clone a human.
Oh, God. That's spooky.
At the time, countries around the world were already starting to ban human cloning, but the U.S. had not banned it. So Clonaid set up in the States, and they took money from an American couple, $500,000 actually, for Brigitte and her team to clone their dead baby.
Oh. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was 2001 when news started to hit of this plan and this company. Brigitte wouldn't reveal where the lab was located in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And the FDA made a statement at the time that while using private funds for cloning wasn't illegal in the US, it did have the authority to regulate and approve the cloning project. And Brigitte was like, I don't recognize the FDA or any authority they claim over our project. And she just carried on.
Uh-oh. Okay.
On March 28th, 2001, Rael appeared before the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on the topic of human cloning, where he gave 5 minutes of speechification on human cloning.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke about IVF and the hypocrisy of banning cloning while allowing IVF, and he argued that stopping science is a crime against humanity.
Okay. Now I'm back in pro Rael. God, this is... my emotions are just being tugged all around. Okay.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
In December of 2002, Brigitte held a press conference claiming that baby Eve had been born happy and healthy to the expecting parents, but did not present Eve at this conference and did not reveal the names of the parents of Eve. Mm-hmm. It is widely believed that it did not happen. And according to the testimony of an ex-Raellian who had worked with Brigitte, it did not happen. It was all a lie.
What about the parents? Sorry, did they speak? I mean, they gave them $500,000?
No, they were private. They never came into the public.
Okay.
Over the years, Brigitte would hold more press conferences to announce the birth of more cloned babies, the Order of the Angels being a pool of young women who often volunteered to be surrogates for the cloning project. Mm-hmm. But less and less people showed up to these press conferences, and most people think none of these babies have ever actually existed.
Weird.
Mm-hmm. In recent years, many ex-members have accused Rael of plagiarism, just straight up stealing his concepts and writings from other authors, including UFO and ancient astronaut authors of the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, and his meditation practices from the Silva mind control method. And a lot of Rael's philosophy closely matches that of Osho. Mm-hmm. The white costume that Rael wears also looks a lot like one that Osho used to wear. And this is where you get to look at the picture I sent you.
Oh, good. Good. Oh, no. What am I looking at? Oh, my God. What's happening?
And like his pants, you can't see in the picture. I couldn't find like a full one. His pants are like white parachute pants. So his whole outfit is white.
No.
And then later years, his hair is even longer. So he wears it like up in like a bun.
Oh, no.
That's what he looked like when he sat in front of Congress.
Oh, no.
In
the hair, though. The hair, though. Oh, my. If that was red, he would be a clown. That's terrible. Oh, God. Thank you so much for giving me this picture.
You're so welcome.
Oh, my God.
There are little pockets of Raellians all over the world. The movement, beyond its advocacy for cloning and scientific research in general, also advocates for women's bodily autonomy, including the right to be topless in public. They also support genetically modified food as the answer to world hunger, atheism, and the decolonization of the continent of Africa.
Well, shit. Now I'm back to pro again. I can't get on board with that outfit, though, or that hair.
You know who Osho is, right?
Vaguely. We've talked about it on here before.
Did you watch the documentary? It was a real long one on Netflix. It was like a multi-parter called Wild Wild Country about the group down in Oregon.
In Oregon, yes.
Yes. Osho was their cult leader.
Oh, yes. Now I remember. That was a long time ago that we watched that.
Yeah, it's been out for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Raellian Movement also founded a public fundraising effort called Clitoraid to pay for repair of clitorises, especially for women in Africa who had been genitally mutilated.
Oh, yeah. Good for them.
Yeah. In 2004, Rael and a few of his partners, I think it was angels, appeared in an issue of Playboy after being photographed with Hugh Hefner at the Playboy Mansion.
Oh my God.
There was a whole period of time where Rael got to finally live out his fantasies of being a race car driver because he was using a bunch of the fucking money that the cult was bringing in to like buy himself a bunch of fancy sports cars and go on the racing circuit.
Good for him. God.
And he like convinced them all that it was like for the movement because he was bringing like eyeballs and visibility to the movement.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. In February of 2007, they put up the Quebec property for sale and moved their headquarters to Las Vegas.
God.
They were never able to get tax-exempt status in Canada, but they did it in the U.S.
I believe that. Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's hard to say how many members there are today. It's mostly believed that the numbers that they claim themselves are inflated. They are still raising the funds for the extraterrestrial embassy to be built. Rael is not in the U.S. He announced back in 2003 that Brigitte would be his successor when he goes. Mm-hmm. Brigitte is somewhere in the U.S. Southwest. She's still a member, still a believer, and still adamant that she cloned all those babies.
Oh my God. Okay.
And that is the super TLDR on Rael, because I first heard about it on that documentary I watched a few months back. It's on Netflix. It's actually like a 3-part, like each episode's like an hour and a half or more. Like it's a long ass fucking multi-part documentary. And there's a lot more that I did not include. That's like,
wow. But
that about sums it up.
God, thank you so much for that. That is wild.
I know.
What the hell? That's, whew. I love it. Thank you. Shit. Well, so some of those alleged babies would be adults by now, yes?
Yeah. I mean, the first one was born in supposedly in 2002 or 2003. So yeah, they'd be adults. They'd be grown adults right now, supposedly, if they were real. If Eve was real, she would be an adult.
Do you think that she was real?
I don't know. I remember the guy that was working with Brigitte that was in the documentary. Mm-hmm. This poor guy, he'd like gotten into the cult in like his teenage years, and he was like 40 when he finally left.
Oh man.
And then like finally like got married and had a kid for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was like the joy of his fucking existence was to be a dad. He had no idea. And he had dedicated himself to Rael and working with Brigitte. And he was like, she's full of shit. It never fucking happened. We didn't even come close. We didn't even come close to cloning a baby. Mm-hmm. So, but she's in the documentary. So is Rael. They interview them. Wow. Like current day. Her daughter was one of the angels and volunteered to be a surrogate for the project.
Huh. And she's holding firm that it happened, huh?
Yes.
All right. Wow. That is wild. Thank you so much for that.
You're so welcome, sister. We did it.
We sure did.
We did that.
Yeah, we fucking did.
You guys, we're still on all the things, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it... Yeah.
We're both losing steam on it. We're both losing steam on all the things. And I also ran into some things that frustrated the shit out of me, and I walked away and I couldn't go back to it. So we're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, we will. But you can find us. We're easy to find.
We're so easy to find. And if you go join the Chaos Kids Club on Patreon, you can get a bonus episode every month. And we have a virtual wine night every once in a while. And we drop the episodes a day early on the Patreon for everybody.
All that is true.
So it's $5 a month. So rate us wherever you listen to us. You know, we're always happy to hear from you. You can send us an email at crimewineandchaos@gmail.com. Amber reads the love letters. I read the hate mail.
It's true. You can also submit a little email-y through our website at crimewineandchaos.com.
Yes, you can.
We got our bios up there. We got episode pictures up there.
Everything's up there.
Everything's
on the website. So,
yeah.
Sister, that was
so
like chaotic.
Bottom. Whew, it was. Goodbye. Love you. Bye. Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at crimewineandchaos.com/Patreon. Cheers.
Oh, it's going to be, what the fuck? Fucking hate it when this shit happens. Anyway,